Hello everybody. At this time we are talking about budget preparation. Budget preparation is the process of creating a plan for how to spend money over a specific time period. This plan helps individuals and organizations make sure they spend their money wisely and avoid going over their limits. And then we move to benefits of early budget preparation. The first benefits about project management. Budget season often puts finance folks an age, invoking the end of year expectation of stress and long hours. These relationships with planning is responsible for worker burnout and attrition as stress leads many finance professionals to move on to other roles. Early budget preparation prevents a budget crunch. It allows leaders to take a project management approach, assign stakeholder roles, set project milestones, identify priorities, and avoid the last minute rush to finish. And then the second, strategy. Early budget preparation allows the financial team to compare different financial strategies or options before committing spend. It's important to consider both practical and theoretical approach when deciding on a budgeting process, as this helps to ensure all options align with company goals. Having multiple scenarios can be especially useful when preparing for unexpected events or fluctuations in income or expenses. During turbulent market conditions, having a backup plan becomes a competitive advantage, allowing well-prepared companies to pivot more readily. And then third, accuracy. Accurate data is the foundation on which all budgets and forecasts are built. Unfortunately, when left to the last minute, data validation often slips through the cracks. When these errors aren't caught early, they can pile up over time, leading to bigger issues down the road. Often, these mistakes only come to light during audits or third-party evaluations, which can lead the problem, like financial penalties, damaged reputation, mistrust from stakeholders especially, and potential legal consequences. And then we move to the steps to budget preparation. The first step, define major goals and objectives. These are the quantitative expectations of the company's future performance. Let's say that a firm aims at a 10% growth in profitability for the next year. How does it achieve that? Does it export higher sales? And then will cost reduction contribute to these goals? Answering these questions requires the company to prepare a detailed budget, breaking down the overall objective into small targets. And then the second, gather data. The department heads provide their estimates and assumptions on the expected sales, production levels, availability of resources, plant restructuring, and so on. Every department or substructure in the organization comes up with its own plan and puts it forward for further consideration. And then the third, prepare the model. Once data gathering is complete, the managers pass the estimates over to the budget committee, which compiles all the information available and prepares the model. A budget committee is a group of people that bears the overall responsibility of the budgeting process. Quite often, they do some overall adjustment is to synchronize the views of all the individual preparers, and for instance, if the HR department and the production department set different priorities, these should be properly aligned. And then fourth, approve the budget. Upon preparing and synchronizing the model, the budget committee is ready to approve the final budget. As soon as the final sign-off is complete, they move on to disseminating the report down the line. And then fifth, communicate the budget. After budget approval, the budget committee should communicate to the department managers in charge. The sales managers are primarily responsible for implementing the sales budget, so they need to be aware of the specific changes in revenue targets for the next year. Production managers should know the approved production levels and plan their resources accordingly. It's a whole process that thrives on teamwork and cooperation. And then 6, report interim results. Overall, budgeting requires effective communication across departments, not only upon preparation but also during implementation. To that end, reporting interim results is the next key step to consider. Most importantly, financial analysis should monitor major variances and explain the returns and reason for them. And then we move to the ways to improve your budget preparation. The first, align with long-term plans. A solid starting point for any budgeting exercise is to refer to the company's existing long-term plans and high-level financial targets. These targets typically include key performance indicators such as revenue, gross margins, and operating expenses. Even though macroeconomic conditions and competitive landscapes may change, the plans provide a baseline for developing more determined and bottom-up budgets. And then the second, create a budget calendar. Creating a detailed budget calendar is essential for managing the various phases and dependencies of the budgeting process. The most effective approach begins with identifying the final deadline for budget submission and working backward to establish key milestones. These milestones should include the availability of actual financial results, completion of current year's forecast, and dissemination of executive guidance to budget owners. And then third, gather and communicate executive guidance. Executive guidance forms the foundation of the budgeting process, translating organizational strategy into tangible financial targets. Finance teams should initiate early discussion with leaderships to understand strategic priorities, growth expectations, and risk tolerance levels. This guidance should then cascade through the organization in a clear, structured manner. I think it is enough. Thanks for watching.